Hello, and welcome to Ask an RV Tech. And today's topic is the RV electricity. You have two types of electricity supplied to your RV. One is the 12 volt direct current, and the other one is the 120 volt alternating current. The 12 volt direct current is supplied by the batteries. The batteries do run out of voltage and need to be recharged. So there's three methods of doing so. The first method would be the charger powered by the 120 volt plug. The second one would be the solar panel, and the third method would be the tow vehicle while you're driving. The most common batteries used in RVs are the flooded batteries containing lead acid. The less common batteries used are the AGM batteries and the lithium-ion batteries. And if you have a motorhome, you also have the engine battery. The engine battery provides a big amp boost to start your engine. It takes about half an hour to fully recharge the battery when the engine is running. The coach battery is a deep cycle battery that is designed to provide constant power to your coach. And it takes 14 hours to recharge each battery since it's only a trickle charge. In this video, we will focus only on the coach batteries. They are deep cycle batteries, and they can be identified by having a threaded stud on top of the battery. The deep cycle batteries are sorted in different groups. They are identified by the label on top of the battery. So you have the RV24 battery that will supply 70 to 85 amp hours. And then you have the RV27 battery that can supply 85 to 105 amp hours. And then you have also the RV31 battery that supplies 95 to 125 amp hours. And for the big punch, you have also the two 6 volt batteries, and one pair can supply 200 to 225 amp hours. You can install as many 12 volt batteries as you like, as long as you have room for them in your RV. But your 6 volt batteries have to be installed in pairs. So the bigger your batteries are, and more batteries you have, the longer you can go dry camp, but it will also take longer to recharge all your batteries. To avoid any sulfation in your battery cells, you need to fully recharge your batteries after every trip. When connecting multiple 12 volt batteries together, they have to be wired in parallel. So to do so is you take the positive wire from your RV and connect it to the positive post of your first battery. And with jumper wires, you connect all the positive posts together. And then for the next step, you take the negative wire from your RV, connect it to the negative post of your last battery, and then with jumper wires, you connect all the negative connections. The 6 volt batteries have to be wired differently. It's called in series. So what you do is you take the positive from your RV and connect it to the positive of your first battery. And then with the jumper wire, you connect the negative from the first battery to the positive of the second battery. And as a final step, you take the negative from your RV and connect it to the negative of your last battery. And now there you have connected your two 6 volt batteries together. And you will notice that the two 6 volt batteries will be the equivalent of one big 12 volt battery. So if you are planning to install more than just one pair of 6 volt batteries, you want to install the batteries in parallel, just as I had shown before. And you still want to make sure that the positive of your RV goes to the positive of your first battery, and the negative of your RV goes to the negative of your last battery. Now the most efficient way to recharge batteries is plugging into the city power grid. And how that works is you got 120 volts going into your converter, which is charging your batteries. So when you're plugged in and you have power, but when you unplug it and you have no more power, the first place I would look for is the fuses on your converter. The fuses could be blown. So just replace the fuses with the factory spec amperage and you should be fine. But never go over the factory required amperage, or it could be a fire hazard. And some models, the converters are installed right inside the fuse panel, so it makes it easier for you to find the fuses. They're right on the fuse panel itself. And now here are a few tips on how to maintain your batteries. One is that you want to make sure that your batteries are always fully charged after every camping trip. And you also want to make sure that the fluid levels are filled up properly. And to do so is you just want to make sure that the fluid is going below the indicator tube, not above it. Overfilling your batteries will cause the fluids to flow out of your batteries while you're charging. And you also want to use distilled water only if you can. Another method of charging your batteries is using the solar panels. It's also another way of keeping your batteries fully charged when you're outdoors. So now how the solar panels work is that they take the light from the sun and convert it into electricity, which is a higher voltage than the batteries can handle. So the panels are sending the high voltage to the voltage regulator that reduces the voltage to a level that the battery can handle, and then it sends that low voltage to the battery, charging the battery itself. Now the battery being charged is sending the electricity towards the RV, replenishing the 12-volt system. If you are planning to have more than 2 batteries in your RV, it's definitely recommended that you add more solar panels to keep up with the charge. When owning solar panels, you have to consider the fact that when it's cloudy, it will reduce the efficiency of your solar panels. And at nighttime, well, you will have no charge at all. So you always want to make sure that you always use less power than what the solar panels can provide, or else you're just going to run out of electricity. There are 3 types of solar panels that are available on the market. The first one is crystalline, which is the most efficient one in a rigid design. It's also most expensive. Then there's the polycrystalline, which is moderate lifespan and slightly flexible. And the last one that's available is amorphous, which is very flexible but also least efficient and also the cheapest. For the solar panels to be the most efficient, just like I mentioned, you have to have a clear sky, and you want to make sure you're away from all obstacles. And so you also want to keep your solar panels clean from dirt and snow. And the last method of charging your batteries is using your tow vehicles while you're driving. So you use a 7-way plug in the back of the vehicle and plug it into your RV. And it usually only works when the engine is running, but there are some vehicles where it's charging all the time, so you want to unplug it while you're camping. Or else you could end up with a dead engine battery in the morning. And one very important detail to remember is when you're charging your batteries is that the battery cutoff switch has to be in the on position, or else it won't charge the battery. The only time you want to turn the battery cutoff switch in the off position is when you put your vehicle in storage for the winter. Also, when you live in an environment where you can get freezing temperatures, you want to remove your batteries for storage and put them in a warm place so that they don't freeze, and crack the casing. If you're planning to install lithium-ion batteries, you have to make sure you get the right charger, because the wrong charger could damage your batteries. Now the other power supply you've got is the 120 volt alternating current, and they power the television, the receptacles, the air conditioner, the microwave, and also the fridge. Traditionally, refrigerators work on propane and 120 volts, but need 12 volt to run the board. Lately, large RVs have started supplying 120 volt conventional household fridges. So when you're not plugged in, then they're relying on an inverter to run the fridge. And lately the manufacturers have been installing 12 volt fridges that don't need propane or 120 volt. They strictly run on battery power. Now, depending on how much power your RV needs, there's 3 types of plugins. There's the 50 amp, the 30 amp, and the 15 amp plugin. And you can get an adapter for every type of connection. You can get a 30 to 15 amp connection or a 50 to 30 amp connection. When you're camping off-grid, there are 2 methods of getting your 120 volt power supply to your RV. The first option is using a generator, and there's 2 types of generators available. One is the generators internally installed with your RV, and then the other option is to use a portable generator that you can have sitting on the side of the RV. Generators are rated by the wattage it can handle, and they are clearly marked as a model number on the generator itself. Here are some examples of wattage used in the RVs. Now you have an air conditioner that uses 1000 watt, the coffee maker 1750 watts, computer uses 200 watts, hair dryer 1800 watts, radiant heater 1300 watts, microwave 1500 watts, oven toaster 1225 watts, refrigerator 475 watts, television 75 watts, and the toaster 800 watts. And these are just a few samples of items you might use in your RV. Now, if you're combining too many appliances together and it exceeds the wattage and amperage of your generator, it will pop a breaker. So if your generator is running and it's no longer charging, you might want to shut down some appliances and then check your breaker. The breaker is always located on your generator. Generators can supply enough power for the RV and charge the battery in the same time, but it has its disadvantages. They require maintenance like an oil change, and some manufacturers specify that you run the engine at least 1 hour per month. And if you don't do so, it could void your warranty. Another drawback having a generator is that some campsites have noise restrictions, so you can only run them for a short time every day. And of course, the other disadvantage is the environmental impact and the fuel cost. The other option of getting 120 volts when you're off-grid is using an inverter. An inverter is a unit that takes 12 volt direct current and turns it into 120 volt alternating current. Some high-end model inverters come with a built-in charger. The biggest major advantage of using inverters is that they are very quiet. Their disadvantage though is that they have a limited wattage rating, so you can't necessarily use the air conditioner, and also they will drain the battery. So if you are planning to stay off-grid for a long time but you need a lot of 120 volt power, then I recommend you get more solar panels and more batteries. So when you are using multiple sources of 120 volt, you will need a transfer switch for every one of these sources, because the wires have to be kept separate from each other. The other option is to also have separate plugins for each item. To avoid damaging electronics, it's also recommended you get a surge protector. A lot of these surge protectors just plug into your shoreline, and they're definitely worth the investment. And so this concludes all electricals on your RV. If you have any questions, please just leave a line on the bottom. Have a good day.